Hi, I'm Rick Tior. So today's video lesson is going to deal with playing accents within different stickings. And this is a very important part of developing technique as well as endurance and coordination as a drummer, which are all very important. It's also important for being able to play with good time. In other words, not slowing down or speeding up when you're playing with the band. Lots and lots of drummers do this. It's because normally they don't have great technique, and when they go to play something, it might speed up or slow down depending on the stickings they're playing. So what we're going to talk about today will solve a lot of these issues. Now, this is a long-term practicing situation here. I've been working on some of this stuff for, 40 years since I started playing. I'm always working on something new in this manner. So when I was a kid, I started out playing out of a book called Stick Control, which everybody knows, and I was a little kid, like 8 years old. But as I grew up and started playing and working with better teachers, we introduced different things that weren't in those books, and that then I started teaching later on, and I came up with my whole method of working on these with rhythms and stickings. But it's no big secret. Other people use these things in different ways. It's just I have my particular way of teaching them. The first step you want to make sure that you understand is that you do not want to play tightly. So we're not talking today about playing with a full wrist stroke like this. We're talking about playing more of a legato style, where that stick is bouncing. Okay, I will be playing both matched and traditional grips today because I think they're both very important grips. So that tightness is not going to enable you to play with a lot of feeling. And a lot of the music that I play, a lot of Afro-Cuban music, Brazilian music, and jazz, you have to have a great feel and great technique, being able to ghost notes to make it sound very effective. If you just have two dynamics, loud and louder, you're not going to be a very effective drummer in those situations. So these techniques that we're going to talk about today really help in that area. But if you just play rock and stuff, it'll also help. It'll give you a lot more strength. Again, it'll help your timing as well. So the books we're going to use today, there's two of them, and they're both my own books. One is called Let's Go Camping. It's a variations on the three camps. And then back of that on page 44, we have the chapter we're going to deal with, and that's called Developing Hand Technique with Rhythmic Patterns. The other book we'll use is my drum set book that's got some other rhythms in there, and we'll look at that. And there we'll be using pages 7 and 8. These particular pages, though, are also in the three camps book, so if you have that, you don't have to get the drum set book unless you want to. So if we look at page 7 in the drum set book, and we adhere to page 44 in the Let's Go Camping book, I have this sequence. And the first one is play steady 16th notes and accent each note of the rhythm while continuously alternating your hands. So if we did that at 120, and by the way, I'll be subdividing a lot of this with a metronome. This is just a TE tuner. It's just an app on my phone, okay? So it's available to anybody. Okay, so that's the first step. And you can do that with traditional or match, it doesn't really matter. The most important thing is that you're not stiff. You're not playing it like this. You're playing it like this. You might almost hear the sticks ringing. That's what you want, okay? Because it's a legato style. So again, not a stiff wrist, and certainly not like this. You shouldn't see any tension in your face or your shoulders. You shouldn't look like you're riding a horse. Okay, you should be very, very relaxed. Now, this can go fast. So like if we went up to 140, you see there, I'm lowering the height a little bit. So when you play slower, you can raise your height a little. So the thing that gives you the accents is not just height, though. It's also a clinch stroke like this, or clench stroke, however you want to say it. So And you'll see it most clearly when I play traditional. I'll show you. Slow it down again a little for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you see how my thumb is coming off and the first two fingers. These bottom regulator fingers here are keeping the stick from going further, right? I'm just doing that. As opposed to this, that you do not want to do that, okay? It's going to end up in a very stiff technique, and, you know, eventually you could hurt yourself. A lot of drummers get hand injuries. That's why they're too stiff, and that's what they're doing. All right, so the next step would be to do diddles. So each note gets a diddle. So it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that also works really well with the next page, page 8 in the drum set book, the rhythmic page. So this is the first couple lines in singles. And then we'll do it with diddles. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, I'll play a little bit match grip because I know you're going to ask. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so both grips. So once you get through that, that might take a while to get it comfortable. And don't worry so much about the speed, that comes with time, but just worry about playing it cleanly. All right, and relaxed, so you don't want to tighten up there. Now, the next thing that I would suggest doing after that is getting into different stickings. So rather than the single-based stuff, now we're going to do maybe doubles, start with doubles. And of course, the ideal thing doing, this is what I work on, first 3 pages of stick control, all those stickings I apply to this, all of them, which is basically a lifetime study, and I'm almost done with it. But the ones that I've liked the best and have been the most useful, we'll show you some of those today. First off is doubles, just this. Okay, that one's tremendous because what you're doing is on those accents that are on the E, the second beat, you're going to have to really pull those out with your fingers. That clinch, see? So that's the first exercise you want to practice for this. And we'll slow this way down to 100. So you see how I'm pulling that out. And when you do these accents, that's what you're going to have to do. So we'll do the first couple lines of page 7 like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Get the idea? Okay, and just go through the whole page as well as the next page. But I wouldn't worry about the next page, page 8, as much as this first of all. When you start getting into those two-note groupings, it gets crazy. But just master it with this first. And you see how relaxed I am, but I'm also using lots and lots of fingers as opposed to my arm or my wrist to do that. Now you can also double time those. So in other words, that particular double stroke would now be 30-second notes, like this. If we make it a little bit faster, and then we play the accents under that. So that's kind of the ultimate in rolling. Of course, it resembles the Wilcoxon rolling in rhythm. That whole thing. But here we're playing each note as a diddle, a double. And let me play that very slowly for you so you can see exactly what's going on. So we'll do it at 90. All right, it's still very relaxed, very bouncy, but again, I'm using here my wrists and a little bit of clinch for those accents. So there's a good situation where you're using a little more wrist and height to get those accents. So all those are good for developing this kind of clinch stroke. The next one I like to do is our fill-ins. So I got this from studying with Joe Morello for years. He was really into the fill-ins. And what you do with that is one hand plays the written rhythm, and the other hand just fills in. It's pretty easy. Okay, not much complicated there. And you do it with your left-hand lead. All right, and you can do that with the other page as well. So that's a real great way to practice these. Let me quickly give you some other options in this realm here before we get into the real complicated stuff. Flams. You can use flam taps, flam paradiddles, whatever. Flam accents, so... All right, so you see there the different flam stickings. And then those are flam accents. Here's flam taps. Reverse flam taps. It's backwards. All right, and you just improvise. It doesn't always have to be the same. You can also fill in these notes with like closed drags and open drags. That sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so on and so forth. Again, kind of like the Wilcoxon, roughing the single drag kind of thing, So you're filling in, you're improvising. So these flams, the drags, these exercises can all be somewhat improvised. Now let's get to the hard stuff. So the other stickings that work really, really well are paradiddle stickings. And the single paradiddle is probably the best one, obviously, to start with. You can do doubles and triples. But the single paradiddle is pretty much the ultimate in developing, your strength and your coordination, as well as the ability to put accents pretty much anywhere because you have a pair of singles and a pair of doubles. So obviously everybody knows the paradiddle is this. And if we play these rhythms within that, it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that's one big hemiolo there. And you just, you start out simple, do one bar at a time, do it over and over again, then keep adding bars. By the time you get halfway down the page, you'll be in pretty good shape. And this, like I said, is pretty much the ultimate hand exercise because it covers every sticking you could possibly do. And then there's different kinds of the paradiddle stickings. In stick control, there's several variations. There's right, left, right, left, right. Okay, so these different. There's right, left, right, left, right. So you can do all of those like a flam mill thing. You can do all of those with these accents. It's tremendous. So the only other thing that I would suggest doing, and this is a little more complicated, and I kind of wasn't sure if I was going to cover it in this video, maybe a little long, but are the triplet stickings. So those of you who study with me, I put you through this, the interpretation, where you're interpreting these rhythms as triplets. So they're kind of swung. So if let me take off this, this subdivision here. If that's 2 and 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so I am swinging them, and I'll put it on the screen here so you can see how that's written out. But you could start out with singles, but these are combinations of right, left, and then right, left. So that's sticking. Very common drum set sticking. You're just applying it to these accents. Right, you get kind of an instant Buddy Rich effect there. So that is the more advanced stuff. And the only other one that I really insist my students learn is, my advanced students that is the triple stroke roll. So this is the hardest one of all of them by far, where you're doing 3 strokes on each hand. And you want to start slow and subdivide triplets. And then you're playing these accents within that. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's nasty, right? It's really hard to get that even. And so that's one thing I'm always working on. Just sort of a maintenance thing. But, those triple strokes. We're not talking about triple stroke roll. That's mainly bounced all the way. This you have to have control over the accent. See? So you have to do this clinch, and there's no better exercise in the world than I know of for developing that. Okay, so that's sort of my sequence from beginning to advanced that I do. And I do lots and lots of other stickings, but if I was going to pick my favorite ones, I just showed them to you today. And these are the ones I teach and that I work on. So I'll just play a little for you and we'll call it a day.